Call the September or special board meeting, not September, February 21st at 1:30 to order. Roll call, Mr. Walk.
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Ms. Rudy.
Here.
Mr. Rivas.
Here.
And Mr. Corral, myself is here. 5-0, all present. Flag salute, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item C, public communication. Members of the public may address the board on items not on the agenda. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes unless the time limit is waived by majority of the board. The board will allow comments by members of the public on an agenda item during consideration of the item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Complaints against specific district employees should be resolved through the district's personnel complaint procedure. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability for defamation. The proceedings of the board are recorded and are part of the public record. At this time, any members of the public wish to address the board, please step forward and state your name at the podium. All right, seeing none. Item D, open session, part 1. We're going to be having a board facilities workshop. If Edward can go ahead and put it up on the board, we'll get started.
Afternoon, members of the board. We are going to be walking through the process for setting priorities for the facility bond funds. Okay. There's no state funding apportionment similar to how we're funded for attendance for facilities. The only state funding that's available is through statewide bonds and local bonds. So in November 2024, the state put a bond measure on the ballot for K-14, and that was under Prop 2 that passed. And in order to access those funds, we have to have a facility master plan that was established within the last 5 years. We do have that from 2023. So we'll kind of go through that as well. The facility master plans include collaboration with the County of Stanislaus and the City of Newman, the planning departments, to forecast housing unit construction and student generation. So basically, how many new homes are going to be built and how many students will be generated through those home builds. So just a little bit of background. In November 2020, we passed Measure X, which was a little over $25 million. And in November 2024, we passed Measures S and Measure T for a total of $57 million. So what the facilities master plan consists of, and I put a copy in your board backup, it looks at our existing facilities and it looks at the enrollment projections based on the student generation. It looks at cohort enrollment, which means one grade level moving to the next grade level over a period of time. And then we look at what our needs are going to be. We know that eventually the Northwest project in Newman will be underway. They've been saying 5 years for a really long time. And whenever you ask them, it's still 5 years. It's been that way for the last 10 years. So it's hard to project the need for a new school when you have this kind of moving target. That's where when we develop the master plan, we would look deeply into that. We look at the county for Diablo Grande planning that happens up there. We look at the financial analysis. We look at what funds are available. Do we have bond funds? Do we have matching funds? Is there a statewide bond? Are there different facility things happening? What are our developer fees? When we do have new home construction, we do generate developer fees, and those are used for growth construction. And then we look at the state school facility funding program and see what is available there. Now, to access Prop 2, we had to have one, an updated facility master plan. We typically do that about every 5 years. We have one from 2023, so we're in good shape to start putting in applications. So there were some facility needs outlined in the last update, and we've already done several of those projects. So part of that is a new school. When the Northwest project goes into development, that there is a designated school site there. We don't have the need right now for a new school, and until that really gets going, we're gonna have to see. We had 104 homes built last year. We have not seen any new any increase in enrollment from that. So I'm thinking that our generation rates may be probably changing in California. I've talked to a couple of other districts that have huge amounts of construction there, and they're closing schools because their demographic has shifted. So that'll be something in the next update that we really look closely at. We have some proposed site improvements, and I've checked off the ones we've already done. The new multipurpose room and admin building is done. The renovation of the admin building to TK classroom, that's done. And you can see the next one on there. There are some on there that we will talk about today, and some that we're not really going to talk a whole lot about. We've also done the Oristimba pool and tennis complex, so that's done. So the Von Renner Elementary School replacement of the 8 existing portables, we'll talk more in depth about that in a few minutes. And then the Bonita and Hunt modernization, those are on there because with your facilities and how old they are, the state comes in and determines a level of eligibility for modernization and new construction funding. And there's a formula that they use, and we have some eligibility for Bonita and for Hunt to do some modernizations. It's not a lot, but if we decide that there is something that needs to be done, we can do that. Right now we're doing the restroom building at Hunt. I don't think it's eligible for funding because it's not classroom space. And then we're looking at, eventually we may need an additional classroom for TK at Bonita if Diablo Grande starts building again. They've stopped for, it's probably been 5 years at least since they built anything new there. We are getting students from there, but we're not getting an increase year to year. And then we did the new classroom building at YOLO. I should have checked that one off because we have that one already. So we've been looking at this master plan, and we have picked off some of the projects already, and we will talk more about a couple of them. So Measure S was one of the measures we did too. They had a little bit different language, but what they allow for actual projects is exactly the same. So Dale Scott's will be presenting on the March 10th, and he'll talk about when we can issue bonds and how much we can access and when we can access it, so we can make decisions about timing of projects. So this is the list for Measure S. It's more about vocational and career and special ed classrooms and reducing overcrowding. We're not overcrowded at the moment. We may be at some point in the future. So Measure T is more about maintenance and really looking at the age of some of our facilities. And this is where we pull out the 8 classrooms at Von Renner, and looking at some of the facilities at the high school and looking at shade structures, things like that we will talk about. But as far as the actual project list, this is from the resolution that went before the board before we put the bonds on the election. And all of this information is the same for both Measure S and Measure T. So Measure S and T has a total of $57 million. And with Measure X funds, we have about $5 million remaining, and I'll go through that in a moment. So once we go in and start talking about different projects, I'll have Edward leave this slide up so that we can refer back to it to make sure it meets the language in the measure. So currently, Measure X was a little over $25 million. We issued bond anticipation notes. in the amount of just under 15 million. We also issued last spring another 5 million, and so that was just under $20 million. And we've spent $19.6 million on the pool and tennis courts, the Von Renner multi-use room, and the modernization, and the Hunt restroom. So we still have $5 million of Measure X funds we haven't issued yet. That's still available to us at some point in the future. But what we have now in cash that we can do projects with over the summer, without issuing anything else, we have about $287,000 available to us right now. And it's not a lot, but it may be enough to pick off some of the smaller things that we'll be talking about. Yes. That's what we'll talk about in March with Del Scott, because he looks at the market, he looks at our bonding capacity, and he'll look at also the market as far as when's an optimal time, so that we're not paying interest. And when you go out put a bond on the market, you're looking at what else is selling that week. When we did bonds last year, we happened to sell the same week that the state did a huge issuance and put a ton of bonds on the market. And we were really, really lucky with the timing of our placement. So there is a lot that goes into it. I know he'll be talking about that, because we also have to sell enough to pay off the bond anticipation notes. That has to be paid back. So they will issue enough to cover that and get the 5 million out as well. The band has to be paid off in 25. I'm not sure what the call date is, but we've been watching that as well.
Is the money coming from Measure X, is there any type of timeline that we have to use that by or use it by? Does it
No.
expire? No, we can just take it at any time.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it's not issued, the taxpayers aren't paying it back. So they're not being charged for it. So we have identified some projects over the past year or so. We're doing a large lighting project across the district. Part of it is with every facility in the district except for Bonita goes through PG&E, and we're paying so that it's financed through on the bill. So what we pay right now is what we will pay until we get our return on investment back. What the difference in cost savings will go to the vendor to pay off their portion. Bonita is not subject to that because they're powered by TID. So what we would like to do is a project during the summer and I have the numbers in the slides to talk about upgrading all of the LED lighting and the outdoor lighting as well. And we will see immediate cost savings on our energy bill as soon as that project's completed. So it will still take about 6.5 years or so to recoup that, but we will be able to see those savings immediately. We're looking at TK5 shade structures. We've had several requested, and there are some issues with those at each site. One of the plans that we have up is for a wrestling restroom facility at the stadium, and to redo relocate the locker rooms. That's part of a whole project. We're looking at Von Renner Phase 2. An all-weather track would be nice and to redo the sod also at the high school and add soccer fields. There's also a need to redo the shop at the high school, and I know Yola would like a CTE facility as well. So the Bonita LED lighting upgrade is going to cost about $71,000. It will immediately increase the energy efficiency at the site, and it will go hand in hand with the GEI project, which will be going across the district, I think starting in April. So this could start in June or July because we do have the funding. The return on investment is about 6.5 years until it would pay for itself back. But these lights would last What's the,
About 25 years is what they're rated.
about 25 years before we'd have to look at this again. Von Renner Phase 2. So we have done, on the left, the picture is right now as the campus stands right now. We have the new admin building, and we have done the TK wing, made the offices into TK classrooms. And what the next phase is, if you can see the building on the left, you see an 8 classroom building that's existing. I wish this had a pointer. Right under that, there's 2 rows of portables. You want to point at them? Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, there you go. Edwards.
Oh, okay, so
15 through 22.
15 through 22, which is the first 2 rows of portables. Those have not been used. I don't even remember how long it's been since they've been used. They're not inhabitable. They're used for storage. And the plan is to remove those and put an 8 classroom building like you see on the right-hand side. That's all we need for right now. That adds 8 more classrooms to Von Renner. Eventually, we may get to the point where we take out the remaining portables and add 2 more classroom buildings in the lower left-hand corner, but we're not there yet. Adding that 1 classroom building will get us through for quite a long time. We'd also like to move the track and then purchase some new playground equipment with a shade structure because of the age of the playground structure. It's time. So we can wrap all of that. Now, part of the old cafeteria, Edward, can you point at the old cafeteria, please? Right. Okay, so right there, the back part of that looks kind of separate is a warehouse that the state architect is not aware that it's there. It didn't go through plans. It's kind of like a metal shed. That may have to come down. We're already planning for, if that has to come down, we have a contingency plan. That is our central kitchen, and we can move the facility inside the old cafeteria. That will work. So we would plan for that in this project as well. So the cost projection for this is about a $10 million project. And when you look at an 8 classroom building, that's really what you're looking at now. We did, to give a little bit of perspective, we built the YOLO 8 classroom building during COVID for 3.5. Now it's 10. But this also has, I think, a little bit more asphalt work than that did, but things have skyrocketed. So we're looking at probably about 10 million for that.
Is that just for the new construction, or is that for the removal of the stuff?
The demo's in there too.
Demo.
Do you want to speak to that? Do you want to speak to that project?
Yes, the demo of the 8 existing portables and the asphalt replacement, that's all included.
Thanks, sir.
So we're looking also at shade structures. So we got some estimated costs. Because they're more than 8 feet tall, they need to go through the Department of State Architecture. And then, so we did at Von Renner. It's not really for the playground. They have an outdoor classroom area toward the back of the campus. And what they were looking at was this is a cost for a shade structure that probably wouldn't work very well because of the size of the space. So what we're gonna go back and look for some umbrellas that can be mounted into the ground and would still meet the DSA requirements, and hopefully come in more reasonably than that. What we're looking at Hunt is 2 shade structures, one for the kindergarten playground, one for the elementary playground. And so that's why the cost that's for 2 structures, and not just to cover the playground equipment. At Barrington, this cost is for covering a cover on the asphalt. They requested this, and this is something we need to speak to because we need to look at equity. Right now, Von Renner doesn't have a shade structure. Hunt doesn't have a shade structure at all. Barrington's playground structures are covered. So we need to make sure, do we want to make sure that everything is covered before we start covering asphalt? Bonita, we didn't include because it's very well shaded. There are some really large mature trees out there. So that's sun hitting the playground is not an issue there. So the stadium, resodding the stadium, we had an old quote from last summer, I think, that was about $200,000. It needs 3 months of total non-use to establish. And so we would have to go to competitive bid. So there is that timeline, and we would have to start probably the day after graduation in order for it to be ready for school to begin. Lighting at the baseball field was asked to be considered. So I had Jonathan do some investigation of what this would go into. And this is looking at about $1 million. Do you want to talk a little bit about what all that covers, that encompasses?
So the project right now, we do not have any underground infrastructure or poles that we can reuse. We have above ground electrical lines, and we have very old wood poles. So we have to bring electric from the switchgear that we just installed at the pool house and bring electric across to all the fields and put metal poles in. So this is about half the cost is the actual lighting, and about half the cost is the work to get all the underground infrastructure out to the poles to cover both the baseball field, the softball field, and the varsity.
So 1 million would actually do all 3 fields?
Correct, yes.
All 3.
On the plans for currently on the high school site map, we have an OHS restroom stadium facility. So that is under the football field. There's a little purple building. That is there's kind of a small rectangle. That's the restroom, and then the other is the wrestling facility, right west of the pool. They could possibly be combined into the same structure to save on some costs. We don't really have an estimate, do we, for this? What we would like to do is relocate the current locker rooms because we're probably gonna have to take the breezeway because that's not a DSA facility. We'd relocate all of the new lockers that we just put in last year to this new facility. We'd use the old locker rooms for the weight room because we wouldn't need the plumbing in there. And then we do the addition of soccer in the track and field area, which is on the field west of the campus. And then an all-weather track, we don't really have an estimate on this. I know you've done a couple of projects that were about $2.5 million, I think. North of that.
Yeah. Yeah, more like 4 to 5 million.
Keeps going up.
But that's to include all the other portions, just not the running track. It's the high wall or the high jump area, all the track and field events area that needed, right? It's not
Correct.
just the running portion.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. 3.5 million construction cost is about as cheap as you can get a track, depending on what options you're using and whether or not you have shot put, and and if you do multiple colors, there's a lot of different options. So 3.5 million is as cheap as you can possibly do it, and most of them are going to be 4 to 5.
So looking at options for the Orsimba shop, and Jonathan has walked that recently as well. The shop that we have now was built in 1966. it would be more cost effective probably to repurpose that building and build a new shop than it would to try and modernize what we have. Not to say that we would tear down what we have, we could repurpose it into something else. We were looking at possibly and out by the farm. I'm not sure exactly what we were talking about, Justin, exactly where.
Yeah, just basically, it's kind of where the field, one of the soccer fields is, that corner by the walkway leading out.
Because the ag department right now is in the J building, which is the building closest to the parking lot. It would be good to have the shop out there as well. And then it's in close proximity to the farm. And we do not have a.
Those qualify for the Prop 2 funding as well.
Yes. Because it's classrooms. Right, that would qualify for new construction.
Because the cost of demolition would be, or renovating that building would be more, so it would qualify under that for Prop 2, correct?
Yeah, well, it's new construction. So issues, we were talking about what are the issues with the shop, and we had a whole long list. There have been some modifications to the building that would have to either be taken out or corrected. There's a multi-level storage in the storage room that would have to be taken out. There would have to be a shower facility for safety. There's a paint booth and a powder coating booth. Those are not approved, but we could probably get them wrapped into the new project. Or at least set up in a different part of the campus where we could do the proper sprinklering. There's probably asbestos in the ceiling that would have to be, once you start to open it, you have to abate it. And then this modernization would trigger a fire alarm upgrade for the campus, not just for this building, but for can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, if you're only working on this building, you would technically only have to upgrade the fire alarm for this building. The challenge we have with the fire alarm on the whole campus is that it's the end of its life, and we're having a lot of trouble getting parts for it. So pretty much anything we do on the high school campus is going to require a fire alarm upgrade for the whole campus. So that's something that if you're going to do any work there, it needs to be part of it, whether it's separate or combined.
And we have an estimate for redoing the fire alarms at the high school. The whole system is about 1.3 million. So a YOLO CTE facility, right now we've kind of got a makeshift shop going on the side of the gym. It's not ideal. We do have room for 2 more classroom buildings. The one on the left was completed during COVID. Then there's room for 2 more, because originally the site plan had them oriented the other way, like the front of the school. And by tilting them 90 degrees, we were able to add room for 3 buildings rather than just 2. So there is room on the site. There has not been a lot of discussion, but I thought since we're doing this, and the shop teacher has repeatedly asked for a building and keeps throwing out some options for us, I wanted to bring that to your attention as well. But that would be another classroom building, not just a shop. That would be probably the smaller of the 2. We could do a 6 classroom building because that's really what the need is right now, and part of that be the shop. So concerns we need to be aware of is timing of projects, as far as the approval process, the having the funding lined up. Matt is our project manager, managing multiple large scale projects at the same time, and just making sure that we have all the funding to go forward as we need. We don't want to be sitting on large amounts of bond funds. We want to have it staggered that we have the money when we're ready for it. So now we can go into the discussion of If you have questions about any of the projects we talked about, if you have other ideas for projects that you want us to look at.
Okay.
Nancy has a board that she put up that'll basically mirror the posters that are on the wall.
So what we would like to do is we're gonna give you guys each some Post-it notes, 1 through 9. And this is just to get the discussion started, just because we put the Post-it notes up, then it'll come back to the discussion. You might have a certain one as your number 2, but after your discussion, then you kind of reprioritize. So just because you put it up there doesn't mean that's what we're locked into. Really, what you're giving us is direction on prioritizing these projects. So each one of you are going to have a 1 through 9. There's also 1 through 8, but there is a 9th one, which means other, in case there's something that maybe we don't have on here that you're like, hey, what about this? And you can write that on a blank one and then put it up there and make that part of the discussion as well. So everybody ready? Or do you have questions for the presentation?
Questions that I already had, I already asked, so I'm good.
You got them. So you'll be getting your Post-it notes.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Are you looking at my notes? Mr. Watt, do you have any questions? No? Mr. Rudy?
Can you put slide 6 up on the screen, please?
Slide 6, please.
Oh, I can go back to it.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of open space, but there's one over here, one there, and then they're kind of mostly over here.
Shame we have to get up.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go to that corner one over there, stay over there.
We also have pictures of the site maps on the wall.
Right. Well, no, you know, then
I know. Can't you just like look out?
It'll get the discussion. This is really just for them to prioritize in their other minds, so that we can, then they can have that discussion.
Yeah.
Done.
Shade.
I know.
Yeah.
Make it 54.
No, kids wear hats.
Close our eyes instead of watching. I paid attention to what color posters you guys are.
Those two.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Do you have prioritizers 1 through 8?
The other one over there.
Michelle's there. Anita lighting. There on the door.
And don't forget, there is money right now to do the small project at Bonita this summer. What the other one that's already gonna be happening. The other ones are gonna take a little bit more time in terms of planning and
Yes.
we're getting funding for those.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, gosh, no.
Just make a note.
Do this all the time. Not spending money though.
It's like Monopoly, it's like fake money, right?
Yeah.
Right now.
But I had more.
That wasn't my cup. It was voted twice for the shop.
I think I did. I might have. No, I didn't.
I don't know, I lost track after 4.
Yeah. I didn't mean to do that. Probably that's probably me.
Did you do
We all have the same color or no?
that? No.
Well,
Oh, that's why.
Oh, you?
yeah, we're the same. That's why.
I think Mr. Pruitt's adding them.
No, mine's like light orange.
I might have did it twice.
No, because there's 3 orange ones on that one.
I might have went twice. I don't know. I had 2 left over.
It wanted to shades.
No, yeah, I did. Shape. Kids are outside.
Oh, let's add this up. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. And then you have YOLO.
I'll let Aaron know.
Oh, I already texted him. It's like golf rules, right? Yeah. It's like golf rules, right? The lower the better.
Yeah. 12. What was the number we were at?
33.
You want all of them over there? Is that what you want?
No, I'm putting.
Oh. So 12 would be here, right? You want me to bring it?
Yeah, really, yeah.
Mrs. Vargas, what's the number on that?
33. Same as this one.
Okay, thank you.
You got it in order.
This is actually fun too.
Yeah.
I'll never visit. You're always working every time.
No, I signed up. Yeah.
Okay, so what we've done is we basically ranked it from the lowest number to the highest number. Again, this doesn't mean this is your final decision on priorities, but it is hopefully to get the discussion going on. If you truly want this one to be first, that's second, third, fourth, on down to 8th. So if you like the order, don't like the order, things you want us to keep in mind or consider as we go.
All right, so just my opinion is we do have 200. Let me see my notes here real quick. Measure X money, we have $287,000 left. Well, the way I see it is we could probably start the football field project right now and then knock out the Bonita lights a little bit early. And then as we get the new the measure S&T funds, we could start doing some of the other projects. I looked at the impact of the most students that use the facilities, not just one area. And if you look at the number of kids that, like, the reason why I ranked the fields and the lights and stuff over versus Von Renner is because we don't have that money yet, and that's a tremendous amount of money. But we do have the money that we could do those projects first. And when you think about all the student athletes that use our facilities to incorporate all the different sports and activities between football, girls flag football, boys and girls soccer, flag football, not to include all the PE classes, the practice facility for the football field or the baseball field that football uses currently, and then all the youth programs that use our facilities as well. You're looking at over a thousand student athletes or kids that use those fields at minimum, probably more. So that's why I had those. I personally ranked them over Von Renner. Even though Von Renner is still like the number one priority on all these things, we just don't have that money yet for that. And that's going to be a huge project versus these other projects that we can get done in a few months. I don't think we're in the need of another multi-purpose room, a wrestling room, that type of building yet, because we're talking about a very limited number of students that are going to be doing that. And the way I look at it is I'm trying to reach as many kids and student athletes or kids at our schools that we could possibly get to, right? So it is a tough decision. That's just my opinion. Do I think do we need all these things? Absolutely. We do need all these things, but we'll get there eventually. There is a couple other things that I seen. I already told Mr. Vargas that our baseball shed, like, we can literally see the sky when we look inside of it. It leaks pretty bad, so we're gonna add that to the list as well. And then anytime we could do the lights and save money, like especially for the Bonita project, I mean, we should jump on that if the very first thing, and not just wait, because those project costs go up, right? So. And then the shade structures, that's pretty minimal cost. We'll work that in based on availability and stuff of our funds. And then the shop, that's going to be another huge project. I think we need to have, let Matt and his team and, come up with a good game plan of, putting all that together. And then what else? That was it, right? That's all I had comments wise. The track and the all weather purpose material that we're going to be going to, I think that's a huge safety concern. I actually looked around the high school today when I was there for the Career Expo. There's like a lot of uneven ground, potholes, like step ups, concrete steps that could potentially get us in a little bit of trouble if somebody does have an accident, fall, slips, whatever, right? So any type we can, do safety wise, we need to address that in as timely fashion. And then the varsity lights, softball, the sports complex, I call it. That's well overdue. That should have been done a long time ago. But we'll work on that and see if we can't fund that too pretty quickly. So that's all I had. Anybody else want to go second? Or did I steal everyone's thunder again? Yeah? Anybody?
That Measure X money, you said 5 million, right? That can go to any of these projects?
I believe so. It may be a little more specific, and it's in your backup. The resolution from that is in your board backup, so we can look at that too. And once we really start getting into the projects, we can make sure that we're using the correct funding for each one.
Okay. Of course, Von Renner's been since I've been on the board since day one. So I told Mr. Posey, I tell Mr. Cove, when I go to Von Renner, like, this is unsafe. Like, it's bad. So, like Mr. Paul said, we don't have the money yet. I don't know when we get it. but that should be number one. Like, you know, but if we have the money to do the lights, do the fields, like start tomorrow and get it done before graduation, let's do it. If we can get it done, let's get it done. If we have the money to do it now.
I agree with the both of you. I think it makes the most sense to start with the projects that we have money for right now that we can get started immediately. Obviously, I think we all agree that Von Renner it needs to be fixed. But we obviously don't have all of the money to start and finish that project immediately. So logistically and financially speaking, it makes sense to start with like Bonita, for example, that we already know what it costs and that we have the money for.
Any other questions, comments, ideas?
How long would it take to get all the measured money?
Well, that's what we'll talk about March 10th when Del Scott comes out, because you can't issue all of it at once because of the tax limit. So he has it worked out where he can see the timing when some old ones fall off, and then we can issue new ones. So he'll have a much better idea of that when he comes on March 10th.
So a previous one, like you guys had, what was the timetable for those?
Well, we passed Measure X in 2020 in November. We did, I want to say 2022. We had a need. We issued a good size amount then, and then we knew we were going to be a little bit short between the pool and Von Renner, so we issued another 5 last spring. So once we know what the need is, we figure out where we can place it. We don't want to have it too early, but we want to make sure that we have it when we need it. We will have to do something soon though for the payoff or the anticipation notes that we took out. So that will wrap up. Probably we'll pull out the last 5 million of the Measure X money for that.
What is the estimated timeline of the lighting project that would encompass all the sports fields at the high school? Just rough estimate. I mean, I'm not going to hold you to it.
For the LED, for the LED upgrade?
For the lights
Yeah,
at the baseball fields and the softball fields?
We would need a couple months to get it together and get it through the state, and then we'd have to bid it. I don't know what the order time is on lights. My guess is it's probably at least 3 months.
Okay.
So at this point, you would probably be looking at sometime in the fall for that to be operational at the earliest.
Perfect.
So just to kind of summarize what I heard from you guys is that you would like to start with that Bonita project and also do looking at the athletic fields at Orston, meaning, and again, I just want to make sure that I understand this, talking about the sod on the football/soccer field, right? Correct, in the stadium. Okay. And then obviously Von Renner phase 2 is the #1 priority, but that's when the funds are available to be able to start that. And I think, Matt, if I remember talking to you, we can't really start that at minimum until next summer. I mean, that would be about the soonest we can start.
There is the potential to start just kind of like what we're doing with the LED lighting upgrade in the stadium. We're actually having that start in April so that those new lights will shine bright in our promotion ceremony and graduation. As far as the turf, 90 days is kind of a standard before we get back on the field. We want to make sure we root in. It would be pretty tight to push it because we would have to wait till right after graduation. So if we looked at a June 1st start, I still think we're looking at the end of August before we can use the field. And what's tough is you have football that, they have their 7-on-7 and a few other activities in August. So we'll just have to work with Mr. Labno to see if that's potentially problematic.
I guess what I was asking is for the phase 2 of Von Renner, that's not even a likelihood until next summer as far as the demolition, correct?
I think so, because of the process we have to
Correct.
go
Okay.
through.
I just want to make sure that they kind of understood what the
Mhm.
timeline would be if we could start it.
Yeah, there is, so the larger projects that are costing more money, like the Von Renner project, we have at least a year to get approval through the state before we can even go out to bid. So next summer would be as soon as that project would actually start. Some of the smaller projects that were mentioned, like the TK shade structures, those things can happen in 2 to 3 months because they don't require the same approval process. They still have to be approved, but it's a different process. So the lights, the shade structures, the fields, some of those have a much shorter duration as far as planning, how much planning time we need before we can hit construction.
And one last question, Matt. What would the bid process look like for the sod for the field?
For the sod, we have to get a spec sheet together of what they'd be bidding on, basically any irrigation improvements, grading, and then of course, dropping the new sod in a maintenance period of 90 days. So it's just as soon as we can get some specs together, going out to a public bid. And just making sure we can keep that window with all the athletics that we have going on the field.
How many days till graduation?
We have, what's tough, we have track on the field right now, or on the field, on the track. So the lighting, we believe we can do that during the school day. Work with the PE departments. They're only going to work on one pole at a time. Don't see an issue there. The turf is just one of those, we want to make sure we plan it right, so we get the full, rooting in. I'd hate to turn over a brand new turf field and then within a few uses it gets torn out. And that's what I've seen happen when it doesn't get the gestation period.
All right, unless somebody has anything else, I think the meeting's adjourned, correct? Anybody have any last comments to think of? All right, meeting's adjourned.